3,500 years ago, the most advanced civilization on Earth wasn't in Egypt, and it wasn't in Babylon. It was on a small island in the Mediterranean, a place with running water, four-story palaces, and cities that needed no walls because they feared no one. Then, on an ordinary morning, the sea pulled back from the shore, and paradise had minutes left to live. This is the story of the Minoans, Europe's first great civilization, and the single wave that may have created the legend of Atlantis. To understand what was lost, you have to understand what they built. And what they built should not have been possible. The island of Crete sits at the crossroads of three continents: Europe to the north, Africa to the south, Asia to the east. Around 5,000 years ago, while most of Europe was still living in huts of mud and timber, the people of Crete began building something extraordinary. By 1900 BC, they had palaces. Not fortresses, palaces. The greatest of them was Knossos. Over 1,300 rooms, spread across 4 stories, connected by grand staircases and open courtyards. Light wells channeled sunshine deep into the building's heart. Clay pipes carried fresh water in and wastewater out. Some rooms had what archaeologists believe were flushing toilets, 3,500 years before they appeared in the palaces of Europe's kings. And the walls were alive with color. Dolphins leaping through painted waves, blue monkeys climbing through gardens of saffron, young men and women with long black curls, dressed in gold and lapis, watching the games below, because the Minoans had games unlike anything else in the ancient world. In the great central court, athletes would face a charging bull, and instead of fighting it, they would grab its horns and vault over its back, somersaulting through the air. Not to kill the animal, simply to defy it. It was sport as art, danger as beauty. But here is the strangest thing about Minoan civilization. Walk through the ruins of any other Bronze Age power, Egypt, Assyria, the Hittites, and you will find endless images of war. Kings crushing enemies, prisoners in chains, armies on the march. On Crete, those images barely exist. The frescoes show processions, festivals, harvests, women everywhere, at the center of religious life, painted larger and bolder than the men beside them. And the cities had no walls. In the Bronze Age, an age of raiders, pirates, and marching empires, the richest island in the Mediterranean left itself completely open. Why? Because their wall was the sea itself. The Minoans commanded the greatest fleet in the ancient world. Their ships carried Cretan olive oil, wine, and painted pottery to Egypt, to Cyprus, to the coast of Syria, and came home loaded with copper, tin, ivory, and gold. Egyptian tomb paintings show them arriving with tribute, and the Egyptians gave them a name, the Keftiu, the people from the islands in the middle of the Great Green. They even wrote, thousands of clay tablets survive, written in a script we call Linear A. And here is a mystery within the mystery. To this day, no one has ever deciphered it. The Minoans speak to us in pictures, in architecture, in gold, but their words remain locked away. We don't even know what they called themselves. For 600 years, this civilization flourished. Wealthy, sophisticated, unfortified, and seemingly unafraid. But this paradise had one fatal flaw. 70 miles to the north, the ground was breathing. Rising from the Aegean Sea, north of Crete, stood a roughly circular island the Greeks would later call Thera. Today we call it Santorini. It was beautiful, cliffs and slopes rising to a smoking summit, harbors busy with Minoan ships. And on its southern shore stood one of the most advanced towns of the Bronze Age, Akrotiri. Akrotiri was a jewel. Houses of 2 and 3 stories lined paved streets. Beneath those streets ran a drainage system connected to indoor toilets. The walls of ordinary homes, not palaces, homes, were covered in frescoes. Fishermen carrying their catch, girls gathering saffron flowers, a fleet of ships sailing between towns, antelope, swallows, and those famous blue monkeys. The people of Akrotiri drank wine, ate honey and barley, traded with Crete and Egypt, and lived lives of remarkable comfort. They also lived on top of a volcano, and they may not have fully known it. The mountain had been quiet for generations. Its slopes were green. Whatever fire had built the island had slept for so long that no living person had seen it wake. But in the years before the catastrophe, the island began sending warnings. The earth shook, hard enough to crack walls and topple staircases in Akrotiri. Archaeologists digging through the town found the evidence. Buildings damaged by earthquake, then carefully repaired. Rubble cleared from the streets and stacked in neat piles. Life went on. The people rebuilt, as people always do. Then came a warning that could not be repaired. We don't know exactly what it was. A violent swarm of earthquakes, the summit beginning to smoke and rumble, ash sifting down on the rooftops. But we know how the people answered it. They left. When the Greek archaeologist Spiridion Marinatos began excavating Akrotiri in 1967, he uncovered a town frozen in volcanic ash, a Bronze Age Pompeii. Beds, pottery, tools, food jars, magnificent frescoes, all perfectly preserved. But something was missing. There were no bodies, not one. And there was almost no gold, no jewelry, no precious cargo. The people of Akrotiri had seen the danger coming. They gathered what they could carry, walked down to their ships, and sailed away from their beautiful town forever. The people of Akrotiri escaped the island in time. What they didn't know was that there was nowhere far enough to run. Sometime around 1600 BC, scholars still argue over the exact year. The island of Thera exploded. It began, most likely, with a blast that shattered the summit and sent a column of ash and pumice punching into the sky. But that was only the opening act. As the eruption tore the volcano open, sea water flooded down into the magma chamber. Water met molten rock, and the island detonated. The numbers are almost impossible to comprehend. The eruption column rose perhaps 40 kilometers, 4 times the cruising altitude of a modern jet, spreading into a black umbrella that could be seen from Crete, from Anatolia, perhaps from Egypt. Volcanologists estimate that Thera hurled out tens of cubic kilometers of rock and ash, making it one of the largest volcanic events in all of human history, several times more powerful than Krakatoa in 1883. And when Krakatoa exploded, the sound was heard nearly 5,000 kilometers away. Imagine then what the Bronze Age world heard on that day. Day turned to night. Ash fell like gray snow across the eastern Mediterranean, on the decks of trading ships, on the fields of western Anatolia, in layers still found today on the sea floor, on roads, and in the Nile Delta. Sailors caught at sea would have watched the sun vanish at midday, the sky flashing with volcanic lightning, the air thick enough to choke on. To anyone alive beneath that cloud, it would not have felt like a disaster. It would have felt like the death of the world. And then the island itself began to disappear. The magma chamber, having emptied itself into the sky, collapsed. The center of Thera, the summit, the slopes, the green heart of the island, fell into the void below and was swallowed by the sea. Where a mountain had stood, there was now a vast drowned crater, a caldera ringed by broken cliffs. If any Therans had stayed behind, no trace of them survived. Their island simply ceased to exist. The effects rippled around the planet. Tree rings from Irish bogs to American mountains record years of frost and stunted growth. Ancient Chinese chronicles from roughly this era describe yellow fog, a dim sun, frosts in summer, and failed harvests. One eruption on one small Aegean island may have chilled the entire northern hemisphere. And yet, here is the terrible irony. On Crete, 70 miles away, the eruption itself killed almost no one. The ash fell mostly to the east and southeast. The sound was terrifying, the darkness was apocalyptic, but the island endured. The Minoan cities still stood. Their palaces were intact. What the volcano could not do with fire, it was about to do with water. When the heart of Thera collapsed into the sea answered. The displaced water, along with avalanches of hot rock plunging into the waves, gave birth to a train of tsunamis that raced outward in every direction. In the deep water of the open Aegean, they would have been almost invisible, moving at the speed of a jet aircraft. Crete lay 70 miles away. The waves needed less than half an hour. On the north coast of Crete stood the busiest harbors of the Minoan world. Knossos, the port of Knossos itself, the coastal towns of Malea and Palicastro, and everywhere between them, shipyards, warehouses, fishing villages. It was an ordinary stretch of the wealthiest coastline on Earth. The first sign was the silence. Before a tsunami strikes, the sea often withdraws, pulling back from the shore, further than any tide, stranding boats on the wet sand, leaving fish flapping in the sun. It is nature's final warning, and it is cruel because it looks like a miracle. We can imagine the people of the harbor towns walking out onto the exposed seabed in wonder, staring at the horizon. And then the horizon rose. Scientists modeling the event estimate waves as high as 9 to 12 meters when they reached Crete's northern shore, in some narrow bays, likely higher. Not one wave, but several, arriving in relentless succession. Water that does not crash and retreat. It keeps coming, a moving wall that picks up ships, timber, livestock, walls, and people, and drives them inland like debris in a flood. The evidence is still in the ground. At Palicastro, in eastern Crete, archaeologists found buildings with their seaward walls sheared away and layers of chaotic debris. Building rubble, pottery, cattle bones, mixed with seashells, marine microorganisms, and beach sand far inland from shore. At Knossos, pumice from Thera was found in the ruins of a seaside villa. All along the northern coast, the same signature. The sea had come ashore, and it had come ashore in rage. In a single hour, the Minoans lost their harbors, their warehouses, their coastal towns, and above all, their fleet. Remember, this was a civilization with no walls, defended by ships. The ships were their army, their economy, their identity. Most of that fleet was in port or in shallow coastal water when the waves arrived. The wall of the Minoan world was made of wood, and in one morning, the sea took it back. The palaces on higher ground survived. Knossos still stood, but the civilization that had built it had just lost its heart. Here is what many people get wrong about the fall of the Minoans. They did not vanish overnight. What the wave began, time finished. And watching it happen is like watching a great tree die from the roots. The eastern fields lay under volcanic ash, and harvest failed. The trade network, the endless flow of copper, tin, and gold that fed the palace economy, was broken because the ships that carried it were gone. Rebuilding a fleet takes timber, craftsmen, wealth, and years. The Minoans had lost all four. Towns that had buzzed with life for centuries were abandoned. The population shrank, and for the first time in their history, the people of Crete were vulnerable. Across the sea to the north, someone noticed. The Mycenaeans, the warlike Greeks of Agamemnon's mainland, a culture built on fortresses, bronze swords, and conquest, had traded with Crete for generations and envied it just as long. Around 1450 BC, roughly a century and a half after the eruption, they came. Almost every palace on Crete was burned, except Knossos. There, the invaders didn't destroy the palace. They moved in. The proof is written in clay. The palace records at Knossos stopped being written in Linear A, the still undeciphered language of the Minoans, and switched to a new script, Linear B. When scholars finally cracked Linear B in 1952, they found it was Greek. In the very halls where Minoan priestesses had once presided, Greek administrators were now counting sheep, chariots, and swords. The Paradise civilization had become a province of warriors. Within another few generations, Knossos itself burned, and the age of the palaces was over. But civilizations like this do not simply disappear. They dissolve into memory, and memory becomes myth. The Greeks who came after told strange stories about Crete. They spoke of a mighty king Minos who had ruled the seas from Knossos, of a bewildering palace called the Labyrinth, from which no stranger could find his way out, and anyone who has walked the 1,300 rooms of Knossos understands where that story came from. They remembered a lost golden age on an island to the south. And then there is the other story. 9 centuries after the wave, the Athenian philosopher Plato wrote down a tale he claimed came from Egyptian priests, the story of Atlantis. A great island civilization, wealthy beyond measure, master of the seas, blessed with magnificent harbors and palaces that angered the gods and sank beneath the waves in a single day and night of catastrophe. An island paradise, a naval empire, destroyed by the sea in a single day. We cannot prove that Plato's Atlantis is a distorted memory of Thera and the Minoans. The debate has raged for a century, since archaeologists first proposed it. But no other event in the ancient Mediterranean fits so hauntingly well. If the legend of Atlantis has a heartbeat, it beats beneath the Aegean Sea, inside a drowned volcano. For 3,000 years, the Minoans were forgotten, surviving only as fairy tales. Then in 1900, the archaeologist Arthur Evans began digging into a mound at Knossos, and an entire civilization rose out of the earth. The frescoes, the bull leapers, the dolphins still glowing with color. Decades later, Marinados found Akrotiri, perfectly preserved under 40 meters of ash. The town whose people saw the end coming and sailed away into history. Today, tourists stand on the cliffs of Santorini and photograph one of the most beautiful sunsets on Earth. White churches cling to the rim of the caldera. Cruise ships drift far below, floating, though few passengers realize it, inside the drowned crater of the volcano itself. The sea is calm. The view is perfect. It looks like paradise. It did before, too.